He told me to get on my knees. I was holding my little girl's hand still in uniform, just trying to buy her an ice cream before heading back to base. 3 seconds later, he pulled the trigger. Yeah, that happened. I've replayed those 3 seconds in my head more times than I can count. And no matter how I slow it down, no matter how I try to rewrite it, it always ends the same way. Flashing lights, concrete scraping my cheek, my daughter screaming my name. Let me tell you what it felt like from where I was standing, because people watch a clip online and think they understand, but they don't feel the heat of the pavement or the way time bends when someone decides you don't deserve dignity. I had just come home on emergency leave, still wearing my Army service uniform, because I'd driven straight from the installation and my daughter Layla begged me for rainbow sprinkles like that was the biggest crisis in the world. I remember laughing and saying, "All right, but only if you finish your homework later," and she rolled her eyes like kids do. It felt normal. After months overseas, normal is a gift, you know what I mean. Then that cruiser came in fast tires, screeching, cutting across the lot like I was a suspect in some action movie. Officer Travis Mallory stepped out with that tight jaw, mirrored sunglasses hand already hovering near his holster. He didn't ask how my day was going. He didn't say good afternoon. He said, "Get on your knees, now." I thought I misheard him at first. I said, "Officer, I'm active duty. My ID is in my pocket." I kept my voice calm because that's what we're trained to do. Stay measured, keep your hands visible, don't escalate. He circled me like I was lying, like the uniform was a costume. "You think that outfit fools anybody," he said, and I felt something shift in my chest that had nothing to do with fear and everything to do with humiliation. I have led soldiers under fire. I have written letters to families explaining why their sons weren't coming home. And here I was in my own country being told to kneel on oil-stained concrete while my daughter clung to my leg. I said, "I'm holding my child. I'm not kneeling. I wasn't trying to be defiant. I was trying to be a mother." He slapped my military ID out of my hand before I could fully pull it free. It skidded across the ground. Layla squeezed tighter and whispered. Mommy and I turned slightly, shielding her without thinking. That's instinct. That's not politics. That's not pride. That's just love. He said, "Last chance." I looked him in the eye and said, "I will not kneel in uniform while holding my daughter." The gunshot sounded like it tore the sky open. For a split second, I didn't even feel pain, just impact like someone had punched me with a sledgehammer. Then the heat came spreading across my chest and my legs gave out. I remember thinking, keep her covered. I wrapped my arm around Layla as we hit the ground. She was screaming high and sharp, the kind of scream that sticks in your bones. I whispered, "Baby, it's okay," even though I knew it wasn't. The concrete was hot against my cheek and I could taste metal in my mouth. Mallory was still standing over us, gun out, breathing hard. "Subject refused commands," he said into his radio like he was reading off a script. That's the part that still chills me, how normal he made it sound. A man a few pumps over had started recording. I didn't know his name then, but I found out later it was Caleb. He told me he'd seen that look before, and he wasn't going to pretend he didn't this time. Paramedics came, fast voices, overlapping hands pressing on my chest, someone saying, "Stay with me, ma'am." I remember Layla's little hand in mine, sticky from melting ice cream, and I thought, "You are not dying here. Not like this." Surgery took hours. The bullet missed my heart by an inch and lodged near my lung. When I woke up, everything felt heavy. Tubes, machines, the beep of monitors. Layla was sitting in a chair too big for her, reading softly from a book because someone told her I might hear her. When my eyes opened, she leaned forward and said, "Mommy, you didn't kneel." I tried to smile around the pain and whispered, "No, baby. We stand." That line went viral later. People put it on posters. But in that room, it was just a promise to my kid. The video hit the internet that night. No commentary, just raw footage. Within hours, my phone, which I couldn't even lift, was blowing up with messages from soldiers, old classmates, strangers. The Department of Defense confirmed my service record. They released citations from deployments most civilians will never understand. Suddenly, the narrative shifted. I wasn't a question mark anymore. I was a decorated officer shot while shielding her child. Mallory's department tried to control the story. The chief held a tight press conference, said an internal investigation was underway, asked for patience. But patience is hard when the footage is clear. The twist came when Mallory's partner, Officer Daniel Reeves, couldn't live with it. He reached out to federal investigators and handed over unedited body cam footage and internal emails. In those emails, the chief instructed them to emphasize non-compliance and downplay the presence of a minor. Reeves later said, "I stood there and let it happen. That's on me. That admission cracked everything open. The case went federal. 9 months later, I walked into a courtroom still carrying scars that a tailored jacket couldn't hide. Layla held my hand. Mallory testified that he feared for his safety. My attorney asked him quietly, "Did she threaten you? Did she reach for a weapon? Did she raise her voice each time he said no?" Then she asked, "Then what exactly were you afraid of?" The silence that followed said more than any argument. When I took the stand, I didn't yell, I didn't cry. I said, "I know what danger looks like." That officer did not see danger. He saw me. I talked about dignity, about what it means to wear a uniform and still be told you don't belong in it. Layla testified too, just enough to say she saw me fall on top of her. Jurors wiped their eyes. The verdict came after 10 hours. Guilty on all counts, civil rights violations, aggravated assault, abuse of authority. 25 years. No early parole for 15. The chief was later indicted for obstruction. The city settled a civil suit and announced sweeping reforms. Independent oversight, mandatory bias training policy revisions. People called it justice, and in many ways it was. But here's the part that doesn't fit neatly into headlines. I didn't feel victorious. I felt tired, relieved, yes. Grateful that my daughter would see accountability, yes. But also aware that a courtroom can't erase the sound of that gunshot from her memory. I went back to active duty because I didn't want my story to end in a hospital bed or a courtroom transcript. I speak now at academies and departments not to shame but to remind. I tell young officers authority without humility is a weapon. I tell young soldiers your dignity isn't conditional. Some people still say I should have just complied. That kneeling for a few seconds would have avoided everything. Maybe, maybe not. But what lesson would I have taught my daughter if I'd knelt when I'd done nothing wrong, that her uniform means less, that fear gets to rewrite the truth? I couldn't do that. You might disagree. That's okay. That's part of living in a country where we argue about what justice really looks like. So I'll ask you, what would you have done? Would you have knelt to make it home safe, or stood to protect something bigger than the moment? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Tell me where you're watching from. Share a story if you've ever been judged before you even spoke. Because this isn't just about me. It's about how we see each other when the lights flash and someone in power decides who belongs. And if my story moved you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Conversations are uncomfortable, but silence is worse. Let's talk about it.